The sky above Xylos wept ash, each particle a funeral dirge for a world in its death throes. And Jeremy Brown knew there weren't enough ships, not enough time. The air itself felt thick, tasting of sulfur and grit, disturbed by unpredictable, violent tremors that sent cascades of rock and twisted geological spars crashing into the dust-choked gloom. He stood on the precipice of the last viable launch pad, its ferrocrete surface cracked and groaning, the crimson light of Xylos's failing star painting the scene in hues of apocalypse, the trembling hand of a small, blue-skinned Arcturian child clutching his worn jacket. Was it the final, desperate gamble to save what little future remained for these children, a gamble that, for him, had only one ending? He felt the faint, rapid pulse of the child's fear through the fabric, a stark counterpoint to the deep, resonant groans of the planet dying beneath their feet. A figure materialized from the swirling dust and crimson shadows, moving with a burdened grace. Karina, her tall, slender form, usually held with the precise posture of a scientist, was stooped slightly now, though her large, intelligent eyes, the color of Xylos's deepest twilight, still held a fierce, unyielding light amidst the lines of profound grief etched around them. She approached Jeremy, her gaze fixed on him, a silent question hanging in the volatile air, a desperate hope that felt almost too heavy to bear. Jeremy's mind flickered, a brief, bitter memory, the shriek of his own survey ship's failing engines months, or was it years ago? The chaotic descent, the crash that had left him stranded here, a reluctant witness to the Arcturian's slow-motion extinction. His engineering skills, suddenly the only currency that mattered on a world that had forgotten how to reach for the stars. Karina stopped before him, the child, Ilara, pressing closer to Jeremy's leg. All other attempts, Karina's voice was low, raspy from the ash but clear, each word carefully chosen. The suborbital launches, the stasis pods, all failed. Catastrophically, the council is disbanded. Most are resigned. Her gaze drifted for a moment to the desolate landscape beyond the launch pad. What you found, Engineer Brown, that derelict, it is all that remains of our hope. Jeremy followed her gaze, though he didn't need to. The image was seared into his mind. Looming in the near distance, half buried by seismic upheaval and the slow rain of planetary debris, was the Ark, an ancient colossal vessel, its hull plating scarred and pitted, vast sections darkened, gaping wounds showing twisted internal structures. It was less a ship and more a fallen titan, a monument to a forgotten age of Arcturian ambition. Now their only desperate prayer. He could almost feel the dead weight of its silence, the cold of its dormant systems. On his forearm mounted datapad, flickering schematics he'd managed to coax from its damaged core memory, painted a grim picture. The primary drive is cold, Karina, Jeremy stated, his voice flat, practical, a counterpoint to the planet's keening. Life support is a ghost signal, navigation non-existent. We'll have to scavenge every viable component from what's left of your cities, from every piece of wreckage still accessible. He gestured vaguely towards the ruins silhouetted against the dying star. And jury-rig systems that were never meant to talk to each other, all while this world tears itself apart around us. Karina's hand gently touched Ilara's shoulder, a protective, reaffirming gesture. The children, Jeremy, they are the future we must launch. They carry everything. Her eyes, luminous even in the grim light, met his. Elara, sensing the shift, looked up at Jeremy, her own enormous eyes reflecting the crimson warning strobes of the launch pad, a universe of innocent trust held within them. That look, more than any words, solidified the cold knot of purpose in Jeremy's chest. In the periphery, he could see them, other, adult Arcturians, huddled figures near the crumbling perimeter of the launch facility. Their faces, when visible through the haze, were masks of deep skepticism, of utter, hollowed-out hopelessness. Their despair was a palpable thing, another obstacle to overcome. Jeremy Brown looked from the impossible broken majesty of the Ark to the small, trusting face of Elara, her tiny hand still gripping his jacket like an anchor. Then he met Karina's unwavering, desperate gaze. He gave a single, slow nod. "I'll get it done, Karina," he said, the words a quiet vow against the roaring death of a planet. "I'll make it fly, for them." He knew the price, and he would pay it. The sky above Xylos wept ash, each particle a funeral dirge for a world in its death throes, and Jeremy Brown knew there weren't enough ships, not enough time. He stood on the precipice of the last viable launch pad, the crimson light of Xylos's failing star painting the scene in hues of apocalypse, the trembling hand of a small, blue-skinned Arcturian child clutching his worn jacket. This was it, the final, desperate gamble to save what little future remained for these children, a gamble that, for him, had only one ending. The launch pad shuddered. "Engines," Jeremy said, his voice raspy, turning to Karina, her blue skin shimmering faintly in the dying light. "Let's see what we're working with." They approached the Ark's primary engine array, a monstrous tangle of scorched metal and sparking wires. The air crackled with ozone, the acrid smell stinging Jeremy's nostrils. "Core drive matrix is shot," he muttered, running a gloved hand over a blackened component. "Needs Xylosian mineral to repair, and what little is left is buried in geological hotspots." Karina's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with worry. "We have a team, engineers and miners. They can begin preparations, but morale is low. Many believe this is futile, human." Jeremy grunted. "Jeremy. And I've seen worse odds. Get your team together." "We start now." Karina gathered a group of Arcturians, their faces etched with exhaustion and despair. Murmurs rippled through the group as they eyed Jeremy, a stranger in their midst. "He is a human," one of the miners, a grizzled Arcturian with scarred hands, said, his voice imbued with skepticism. "What does he know of our engines?" Jeremy ignored the comment, already inspecting the Ark's failing power grid. "This converter is useless. I've got a human design that might work, but it'll need some adjustments." He pulled a small, battered device from his pack, a human-designed power converter, salvaged from his survey ship. He spent the next few hours hunched over the converter, jury-rigging it with salvaged components and unconventional tools. He used a focusing crystal to amplify Xylos's weak sunlight, micro-welding alien and human tech. Karina watched, translating Arcturian schematics, her initial skepticism slowly giving way to surprise. "I did not think that was possible," she admitted, as the hybrid system flickered to life, bathing the area in a pale blue light. Jeremy wiped sweat from his brow. "Neither did I." "Let's see if it holds." The launch pad lurched violently. Alarms blared as the ground trembled beneath their feet. "Seismic activity!" one of the engineers shouted. Debris rained down, striking the Ark's hull. A miner cried out in pain, clutching his leg. Karina rushed to his side. "Medkit! We need a medkit!" She barked orders in rapid Arcturian, her bioluminescence flashing urgently. Jeremy surveyed the damage. The support strut on the Ark had buckled. "Life support or engines," he said grimly, turning back to Karina. "Which do we prioritize?" A heated debate erupted among the Arcturians. Some argued for prioritizing life support for the remaining population, while others insisted on focusing on engine repairs for a potential escape. Karina raised her voice, silencing the dissent. "We follow Jeremy's plan. Escape is our only hope." She turned to Jeremy. "The Xylosian mineral. The mining site is far and the terrain is unstable. I will lead you." "I'm going with you," Jeremy replied. "We need that mineral." Before they left, a small figure approached Jeremy. It was Ilara, the young Arcturian girl who had been clutching his jacket. She held out a small carved Xylan crystal. "For luck," she chirped, her large amber eyes filled with hope. Jeremy took the crystal, his heart clenching. "Thank you, Ilara. I'll keep it safe." He tucked the crystal into his pocket, a tangible reminder of what he was fighting for. The trek to the mining site was arduous. The landscape was a wasteland of cracked earth and crumbling rock formations. Seismic tremors shook the ground with alarming frequency. When they finally reached the site, they found the tunnels had collapsed, blocked by tons of rubble. "Damn it," Jeremy muttered. "There's got to be another way in." As they explored the collapsed mine, Jeremy paused, a distant look in his eyes. He saw flashes of a burning ship, the screams of trapped crewmates, his own desperate attempts to save them, all failing. Karina noticed his distress. "Jeremy, what is it?" He shook his head, trying to clear the images. "A long time ago, a mission. I couldn't save everyone." He looked at Karina, his voice low. "I won't let that happen again." Karina placed a hand on his arm, her touch surprisingly gentle. "You are not responsible for the past, Jeremy, only for the future." They found another entrance, a narrow, treacherous passage leading deep into the mine. The air was thick with dust, and the walls groaned ominously. They pressed on, deeper into the earth. Finally, they discovered a vein of the Xylosian mineral, shimmering faintly in the dim light. But it was located in an extremely unstable section of the mine, riddled with cracks and fissures. "This is it," Karina said, her voice tight. "But it is too dangerous." Jeremy examined the vein. "We can stabilize it for a while, but we need to be quick." As they began extracting the mineral, a section of the mine collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air. "Jeremy!" Karina shouted. Jeremy reacted instantly, using his engineering skills to reinforce the tunnel with salvage struts and support beams. He managed to stabilize the collapse, saving the team, but a large portion of the mineral was lost, buried beneath the rubble. Back on the launch pad, the Arcturians gathered to discuss the implications of the mineral shortage. But the discussion quickly shifted to something far more dire: the engine ignition sequence. One of the engineers said, his voice trembling, "It requires a manual override." From the aft stabilization pod, Karina's bioluminescence dimmed. The pod, it must be jettisoned after launch to prevent a catastrophic feedback loop. There is no remote override. Silence descended upon the group. Jeremy stepped forward, his face grim. "Someone has to stay behind." A murmur of fear and resignation rippled through the Arcturians. Some suggested drawing lots, a grim lottery of sacrifice. Jeremy shook his head. There has to be another way. But privately, he knew the grim reality. There wasn't. Despite the looming sacrifice, the work continued. The Ark's primary life support system sputtered back to life, providing breathable air and clean water for the first time in months. A collective sigh of relief swept through the launch pad, but the knowledge of the impending sacrifice cast a long, dark shadow. As the days passed, tensions grew. One Arcturian, driven by despair and believing the plan was futile, attempted to sabotage the engine repair. Karina and Jeremy intervened, preventing the damage, but the incident highlighted the deep divisions within the Arcturian community. Jeremy moved on to the navigation system, his brow furrowed in concentration. He quickly determined that the primary navigational array was beyond repair. "This is going to need a human solution," he muttered. He spent hours poring over human star charts and navigational techniques, adapting them to the Arcturian system. He created a hybrid solution, a fusion of human and Arcturian technology that was surprisingly effective. The engine ignition sequence was tested, a moment of tense anticipation. The engines roared to life, but the power fluctuations were dangerously high, reinforcing the need for the manual override and the sacrificial mechanism. Karina approached Jeremy, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and sorrow. "I have seen your dedication, your ingenuity. I trust you, Jeremy. I entrust you with the future of my species." She paused, her voice barely a whisper. "I know what this means." The navigation system finally flickered online, allowing them to plot a course through the stars. But the victory was bittersweet. The system drained a significant amount of power from the life support system, forcing a difficult choice on power allocation. The Ark was coming together, but at a cost. Jeremy struggled to balance the Ark's power consumption. The navigation system, vital for charting a course away from Xylos, was leaching energy from the life support, the hum of the failing generators growing ever fainter. He adjusted the regulator, a grim line etching itself deeper into his forehead. "Karina, we need to reroute auxiliary power. The environmental controls are taking too much strain." Karina's voice crackled over the comms. "Understood, Jeremy, but the temperature is already dropping in the children's sector. They are uncomfortable." He winced. "I know, but we need to prioritize navigation. We can reduce lighting. It's a temporary measure." He hated it. Every compromise felt like another nail in their collective coffin. Elara approached him, her small blue face etched with worry. "Jeremy?" she chirped, her voice barely audible above the Ark's groaning. "Is the Ark getting sad?" He knelt, meeting her large, expressive eyes. The faint bioluminescent patterns on her skin, usually a vibrant turquoise, were noticeably dimmer. "No, Elara, the Ark is just tired. We're trying to make her feel better. Will she be okay? We're doing everything we can." He hated the platitude, the inadequacy of his words. Elara reached out, her small hand touching his. "It's cold." He squeezed her hand gently. "I know. We'll fix it." He had to. A low, guttural howl echoed from beyond the launch pad, cutting through the Ark's internal noise. It was answered by a chorus of similar sounds, closer now. Karina's voice, sharp with alarm, filled the comms. "Jeremy, we have multiple life form signatures approaching the perimeter. Xylosian predators, drawn to the energy emissions." Jeremy cursed under his breath. "How many? Too many. Our security forces are already stretched thin. Their weapons, they are barely functional." He scanned the desolate landscape beyond the launch pad, The crimson light of Xylus's dying star painting long distorted shadows. He could make out movement in the ash-choked air, shapes slinking between the skeletal remains of Xylossian flora. "Seal the hatches," he ordered. "No one leaves the Ark," Karina responded. "The perimeter must be maintained. We cannot allow them to reach the launch pad." Jeremy rose, his mind racing. Their defenses were pitiful. The Arcturians were brave, but their outdated energy weapons were no match for a pack of hungry predators, especially not with the power fluctuations. He needed a deterrent, something to keep them away without draining the Ark's already strained systems. "Karina, what about the Xylossian mineral? The one we've been using for the reactor shielding? It is unstable, Jeremy. Highly reactive." "I know, but it resonates at specific frequencies." "If we can amplify that resonance, create a sonic deterrent, it might be enough to drive them off." Karina hesitated. "It is a risky procedure, and it will require a significant power draw. We don't have a choice. Get a salvage team together. I'll need amplification coils, focusing lenses, anything we can jury-rig." The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. Jeremy, fueled by caffeine and desperation, led the salvage team in constructing the sonic deterrent. They scavenged parts from the Ark's derelict sections, improvising with whatever they could find. The mineral, a dull purple crystal, pulsed with a faint inner light as they connected the amplification coils. The procedure was dangerous. The mineral's reactivity made it prone to sudden energy surges, threatening to overload the system and cause a catastrophic explosion. Each adjustment was a gamble, each spark a potential disaster. The power drain was significant, plunging sections of the Ark into near darkness. As they worked, the howling grew louder, closer. The predators were testing the perimeter, their guttural cries sending shivers down Jeremy's spine. Finally, the deterrent was ready. A crude, ungainly device, but it was their only hope. "Ready to activate," Jeremy announced, his voice tight with tension. "Stand back." He flipped the switch. The mineral pulsed with a blinding light, and a high-pitched, almost inaudible hum filled the air. The Ark shuddered under the strain. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. "Hull breach! Sector 4! Pressure loss!" Karina's voice was frantic. The power surge destabilized the hull plating. Even as the sonic deterrent screamed, the predators attacked. They surged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with predatory hunger. The Arcturian security forces opened fire, their outdated weapons spitting bolts of energy that barely scratched the creatures' thick hides. The deterrent worked. The predators recoiled, their howls turning into shrieks of pain. They stumbled back, clawing at their ears. Their advance halted, but the power surge had taken its toll. Jeremy raced towards Sector 4, his heart pounding in his chest. The hull breach was small, but the air was hissing out with alarming speed. He could see the jagged edges of the damaged plating, the void of space beckoning beyond. "Repair teams to Sector 4! Seal the breach!" he shouted. But repair materials were scarce. They had salvaged almost everything of value from the derelict sections of the Ark. What little remained was insufficient to patch the breach. An Arcturian engineer, her face streaked with soot, approached Jeremy. "I have an idea, Jeremy. The Xylossian flora. Some species produce a biosealant. It is temporary, but it may be enough to hold until we launch." Jeremy looked at her, hope flickering in his chest. "Can you synthesize it quickly enough?" "I can try." While the engineer worked, Jeremy and Karina struggled to contain the breach. They used emergency blankets, anything they could find to slow the flow of air. The temperature plummeted, the air growing thin and cold. The engineer returned, carrying a vial of viscous green fluid. "It is ready. It will not hold for long, but it should seal the breach temporarily." They applied the biosealant to the damaged plating. The fluid hardened quickly, forming a makeshift patch over the breach. The hissing subsided, the pressure stabilizing. "It is holding," Karina announced, relief evident in her voice. "But it is a temporary fix. The sealant will degrade over time." Just as they finished, a deep rumble shook the launch pad. The ground trembled beneath their feet. "Seismic activity increasing," Karina reported. "The launch pad is becoming unstable. Our window is narrowing." Jeremy knew what that meant. Time was running out. They had to get the Ark airborne, and soon. Karina approached him, her expression grave. "I have completed the final capacity assessment, Jeremy." He braced himself. He knew what was coming. The Ark, it cannot carry all of our children, not safely. Not with the current power constraints and the damage we have sustained. The words hung in the air, heavy with despair. Jeremy felt a cold dread wash over him. "How many?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "A fraction, Jeremy. A fraction of those we hope to save." The weight of the world settled on his shoulders. He knew what he had to do. They had to make a list. An agonizing, impossible list of who would live and who would be left behind. He and Karina worked through the night, poring over data, agonizing over every decision. Age, health, essential skills. They tried to be objective, but every choice felt like a betrayal. Finally, the list was complete. A list of names, each representing a life, a future, a hope. Ilara's name was on the list. She represented hope, resilience, the future of her people. But as she stood beside Jeremy, watching the families who would be left behind weep, her small face was etched with sadness. Jeremy watched her, his heart aching. He knew what he had to do. He had known it all along. His sacrifice was the only way to ensure their survival. The Arcturians began preparing the children for evacuation. Emotional goodbyes filled the Ark, heartbreaking farewells echoing through the corridors. Mothers clung to their children. Fathers whispered words of encouragement. Siblings embraced, knowing they might never see each other again. Karina approached Jeremy, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. She did not speak, but her gaze conveyed everything. She understood. She knew the weight of his impending sacrifice. Ilara approached him, clutching a small, carved Xylan crystal. "For you," she said, her voice barely audible above the sobs. "For luck." He took the crystal, his fingers brushing against hers. "Thank you, Ilara. Promise me," she said, her eyes pleading. "Promise me you'll watch over us." He knelt, meeting her gaze. "I promise. I'll be watching." He tucked the crystal into his pocket, a tangible reminder of the future he was fighting for. The alarms blared. The launch sequence had been initiated. There was no turning back. The Ark shuddered, a monstrous beast awakening from centuries of slumber. Engines coughed, then roared, a symphony of strained metal and superheated plasma. A bone-jarring vibration ran through the deck plates as the ancient vessel strained against gravity's pull, clawing its way skyward. Alarms blared on the bridge. Karina gripped the console, her blue skin slick with sweat. "Course deviation. We're drifting west. Trajectory unstable." The holographic display showed the Ark's projected path arcing sharply downwards, back towards the ravaged surface of Xylos. In the auxiliary control pod, strapped into the ancient command chair. Jeremy's face was grim but calm. Compensating now, Karina. Give me 30 seconds. His fingers danced across the archaic control panel, rerouting power, adjusting thruster vectors. Guidance systems fried. Looks like we're doing this the hard way. A high-pitched screech echoed through the comms, followed by a garbled warning from the launch pad perimeter. Breach! Predators are through the sonic fence. I repeat, predators are through the fence. The Ark lurched violently. Sparks showered from a junction box near Karina's station. Support Structure 4 is failing, she shouted, fighting to maintain her balance. The launch pad is collapsing. Karina slammed her fist on the emergency thruster activator. The Ark bucked like a wild bronco, the added force straining the already weakened support structures. More alarms joined the cacophony, a chorus of impending doom. A new warning flashed across Karina's console. Life support critical. Oxygen levels dropping, children's sector. She swiveled to the comm. Jeremy, oxygen levels are plummeting in the children's section. We're losing pressure. In the cramped confines of the children's sector, Ilara coughed, her small chest heaving. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin flickered erratically, reflecting her rising panic. Other children whimpered, their eyes wide with fear. Jeremy's voice cut through the chaos, calm and resolute. Karina, prioritize life support. Divert all non-essential power. Navigation, shields, everything. Get those kids air. But Jeremy will lose navigation completely. We're entering the meteoroid belt, Karina protested, her voice filled with desperation. Those children are the future, Karina, Jeremy said firmly. Get them air. I'll navigate. The view screen flickered, then filled with a chaotic jumble of asteroids, ranging from pebble-sized fragments to ship killers the size of small buildings. Jeremy gripped the manual controls, his nucleus tightening. He muttered, mostly to himself, "All right, let's see what you can do, old girl." He wrestled with the controls, using every ounce of his piloting skill and his intimate knowledge of the Ark's systems to thread the needle through the asteroid field. The ship groaned and shuddered as it narrowly avoided collision after collision. Suddenly, a massive meteoroid loomed directly ahead, filling the view screen. "Brace for impact," Jeremy yelled, throwing the Ark into a series of desperate evasive maneuvers. A deafening screech of tearing metal filled the ship. Alarms blared anew. Fuel line rupture, Section 7. "We're losing fuel," Karina screamed over the comms. "We're venting atmosphere," Jeremy cursed under his breath. He knew what this meant. Without fuel, the Ark wouldn't make it. And the venting atmosphere meant they were losing precious breathable air. He accessed the damage reports, his expression hardening. "Karina, can you seal it remotely?" "Negative. The rupture is too large. The automated systems can't compensate," she replied, her voice trembling. "It requires a manual weld from outside the ship." Silence hung heavy in the comms. Jeremy stared at the schematic, his mind racing. The launch pad was collapsing, predators swarming, radiation levels spiking, and now this. "Jeremy, no," Karina pleaded, her voice thick with tears. "There has to be another way." "There isn't, Karina." "You know that," Jeremy said softly, his gaze hardening with dedication. "You promised to protect those children. This is how you do it. But you—" "It's all right, Karina," Jeremy interrupted, his voice gentle. "I'm just a systems engineer. They're the future. Remember that." He paused, then added, "Tell Ilara. Tell her I said goodbye." He activated the emergency seal on the auxiliary pod, donned a battered and patched-up spacesuit, and cycled the airlock. The outer hatch hissed open, revealing the chaotic scene outside. The crumbling launch pad, the swarming predators, the crimson sky choked with ash. Jeremy stepped out into the vacuum, tethered to the Ark by a thin lifeline. The cold was immediate and brutal. Even through the damaged suit, he could feel the radiation already burning his skin. He activated the magnetic clamps on his boots and began to make his way towards the ruptured fuel line, a flickering welding torch clutched in his hand. Inside the Ark, Ilara clutched the small Xylan crystal Jeremy had given her, the one she'd carved herself. A sudden warmth spread through her hand. The crystal began to glow, bathing the children's faces in a soft, ethereal light, a beacon of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Outside, Jeremy reached the fuel line. Sparks flew as he began to weld, the intense heat battling against the frigid vacuum. His suit was failing, alarms blaring in his ears, but he pressed on, driven by the image of Ilara's face, by the promise of a future for the children of Xylos. Finally, with a last surge of energy, the weld held. The fuel leak stopped. The engine stabilized. Jeremy knew he didn't have much time. The radiation was already taking its toll. He looked back at the Ark, a small silhouette against the dying light of Xylos, rising towards the stars. He activated the jettison sequence for the auxiliary pod, severing his connection to the ship. As the pod detached, tumbling back towards the doomed planet, Jeremy smiled, a faint, peaceful expression on his face. The Ark cleared Xylos's atmosphere, its engines humming steadily, a mechanical heartbeat against the backdrop of silence. The dying planet shrank in the viewport, a crimson tear in the fabric of space. Jeremy's sacrifice ensured their escape, but a heavy silence hung in the children's section, a palpable absence replacing the usual excited chatter. Karina stood on the bridge, staring at the receding image of Xylos. Tears streamed down her face, each drop a testament to her grief. She replayed Jeremy's final words in her mind. "Tell Ilara. Tell her the stars are beautiful from here. Get them home." A mixture of grief and gratitude overwhelming her. He had given them more than just escape. He had given them a future. In the children's section, Ilara clutched her Xylan crystal, its faint glow a fragile beacon in the dim light. It was warm to the touch, a lingering echo of Jeremy's hand. She whispered his name, a silent promise to remember him always, to carry his kindness in her heart. The children, though safe, were deeply traumatized. Whispers filled the darkened cabins, punctuated by stifled sobs. Nightmares plagued their sleep, filled with images of Xylos's destruction, of crumbling cities and ash-choked skies, and the faces of loved ones left behind. Karina gathered the children, her voice firm but gentle. "We are safe now," she said, her blue skin shimmering with a faint bioluminescence. "Jeremy gave his life to ensure our survival. We will honor his sacrifice by protecting each other and keeping his memory alive." She shared stories of his bravery, his ingenuity, his unwavering compassion, inspiring a flicker of hope amidst their grief. The Ark journeyed towards Kepler 186, a potentially habitable exoplanet light-years away. The journey was long and arduous, the vastness of space a constant reminder of their isolation. But the children's resilience shone through, fueled by Karina's stories and their shared grit to build a new life. Inspired by Jeremy's example, the children began to adapt to their new environment. They studied the Ark's systems, learning to repair and maintain the aging technology. They developed new skills in engineering, science, and leadership, embodying the spirit of human ingenuity that Jeremy had instilled in them. They learned to combine Arcturian knowledge with human pragmatism, creating innovative solutions to the challenges they faced. Karina created a memorial for Jeremy in the Ark's central chamber. At its heart, she placed Ilara's Xylon crystal, encased in a protective field. It became a symbol of hope and remembrance, a constant reminder of the human who had saved them and the values they must carry forward. Years passed. The Ark, battered but resolute, approached Kepler 186. A lush, green planet, teeming with life, filled the viewport, a vibrant contrast to the desolate world they had left behind. The children gazed in awe at their new home, a sense of hope and excitement filling the air, pushing back the lingering shadows of their past. A new dawn awaited. The Ark landed safely on Kepler 186f, its landing gear sinking slightly into the rich, fertile soil. Karina, her face etched with dedication, led the children on their first exploration. They discovered new plants with vibrant colors and strange textures, animals with unique adaptations, and abundant resources that promised a sustainable future. The Arcturians began to build a new home on Kepler 186, using their ingenuity and adaptability to overcome the challenges of a new world. They incorporated elements of Xylosian and human technology, creating a unique hybrid culture that blended the best of both worlds. They built homes that were both functional and beautiful, harnessing the planet's natural energy sources and respecting its delicate ecosystem. Jeremy's legacy lived on through the Arcturian children. His story became a legend, passed down through generations, inspiring others to overcome adversity and embrace the power of human connection. His values of compassion, selflessness, and hope became the cornerstones of their new society. Ilara, now a young woman, stood tall and proud, a natural leader among her people. She carried Jeremy's crystal with her always, a tangible reminder of his sacrifice and the importance of hope. She guided her people with wisdom and compassion, ensuring that Jeremy's legacy would never be forgotten. Ilara stood on a hill overlooking the new Arcturian settlement, gazing at the stars. She dreamed of one day exploring the galaxy, carrying Jeremy's spirit of adventure and discovery to new worlds, spreading the message of hope and the power of human connection to the far reaches of the universe. Close up on Ilara's face, her eyes reflecting the starlight, the Xylon crystal in her hand glowed faintly, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring legacy of a human who gave his life so alien children could escape their dying planet.